Exactly a year ago, May 13th, 2020, we were talking about Florida again. Now, it was interesting because even at this point, and we did a piece on this a couple days ago, honestly, but it was very obvious that Florida and other states that were pursuing a liberty-focused, freedom-focused POV strategy were having either the same outcomes as other states or they were having better outcomes. What was not happening, very obviously, even at this point, was that there were no super spreader things. We had the idiot that dresses up as the Grim Reaper go out on the beaches of Florida, and he made a sort of a PR stink, obviously predicting that people were going to die in droves, and it just never happened. And again, we knew early on that the default, the assumption should have been that you can go out on the beach. Anybody that's ever gotten a cold or a flu or anything has never gotten it from the beach. And sure, could COVID be completely different? Could it be the beach transmittable virus? Yeah, but we didn't have any evidence of that. And once again, we have defaults, right? We have things that we, can keep an eye on, right? Like, hey, there's a lot of people at the beach, and I know everybody's been shut in for a while. Let's keep an eye on this, right? That's totally okay. But to say you can't go out on the beach because maybe, and you say, well, the beach has never been spread ever for anything. Why would we do that? And they say, well, you never know. Better safe than sorry. There are those words again, out of an abundance of caution. And here we have an Axios article talking about corona cases are not surging in high-risk states. Again, what's a high-risk state? But they applied that term high risk to states that dared not try and control their population with force. That's a high-risk state. That's their definition of a high-risk state, right? A state that has a bit of a laissez-faire, hands-off, freedom approach to this. And no states really did that. We had no states in the union that were completely hands-off, unfortunately. I think Florida was pretty close. Georgia actually came out of the gate a little quicker, I think, at first. They let hairdressers and other people do their jobs. But even here, and again, this was consistent. And this was the third batch on Florida that I've done. And this was big. It was coming out, and people just refused to even acknowledge it, much less admit it. And if we can't acknowledge this in real time, if we cannot admit that, again, were people dunking, slam dunking at this point? Were we spiking the football? No, of course not. Again, this is this polar argument, like, oh, you want to let it rip. Nobody ever wanted to let it rip. That is something that you made up to try and silence dissent. The alternative path was Florida, was Sweden, was freedom. And that should not have been the alternative path. That should have been the default. And it worked. And the rest of the people that did the opposite used force, government, coercion, societal pressure, fear, to try and make the citizenry do X, Y, and Z. Again, based only on the fact that it seemed like the right thing to do, or maybe could possibly, sorta. The things that we have forced people to do have no basis in science. There's no evidence to support doing these things. And so 1 year ago today, once again, we were talking about Florida and their successes, and nobody was listening.